Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our latest Meet the MDs interview. And today I'm really pleased to have with me Peter Shanks, the MD of Silversea. Morning, Peter. How are you?
I'm very well, James. It's great to speak to you as always. I'm really happy to chat through things with you.
Fantastic, Peter. We've known each other for a few years now, Peter, and I'm really pleased that we're spending this time together. Now you've been at Silversea for a number of years now, three years roughly.
Yeah, so 3 or 4 years, and before that I was with Cunard for a long time. So I guess some people would say I'm an industry veteran, but I'm still young at heart.
I know I've been called an industry veteran, and I do take offence to that, but there you go. Yeah. Anyway, so. Over the last few years, there's been loads going on at Silversea, hasn't there? So let's talk a little bit about that. So Silversea was acquired by Royal Caribbean some time ago now. Tell us a little bit about that, and has anything changed for the good, for customers' benefits?
Yes, we're about 27 years old now, and we started as a family-run company from Monaco, sort of Italian Monaco-based family, and slowly built up the business over the years with a great reputation in the sort of what we call the ultra luxury cruising market. And about 3 years ago now, our founder and chairman, Manfredi, sold 2/3 of the company to the Royal Caribbean Group. And then last year, actually, he completed that transaction, and we're now fully owned by the Royal Caribbean Group. And boy, are we pleased about that, both for us and for our guests, because over the last 18 months, having the backing of such a large global organization as Royal Caribbean has really given us confidence, and we're still here. We're still very much active and looking forward to the future. We went into the pandemic with 5 new ships on order, and we've delivered a couple of those already, which we can chat about. But they really have bought us because they see us. They describe Silversea as the jewel in their crown, and they very much respect what we do and what we have done and what our guests like to experience. And so they've left us completely alone in terms of how we look after our guests, how we develop our experiences on board, the destinations we go to, but they're giving us the financial backing and the muscle and the expertise that give us a great advantage for growth. So in many ways, it's business as usual, but with much more confidence behind us.
Fantastic. Well, that's great news for everyone, Peter. And, like you say, we're going to talk a little bit about your innovations and your new products coming to market in a second. But so how has Silversea approached the pandemic, and what have you got in store for us as cruising has restarted for you? Of course, what's happening there?
Yes, we're slowly coming back to life, and we're being very, very cautious to make sure that the health and safety of our crew and our guests remains at the forefront, as everyone would expect. We have 4 ships operating as of today, James. We have the Silver Moon in Greece. We have the Silver Muse in Alaska, the Silver Origin in Galapagos, and the Silver Shadow up in Iceland. So we have 4 ships out of our fleet of 9 at the moment, and we're coming back very cautiously. We're only sailing with about 30 to 40% occupancy at the moment. We'll ramp that up as we get more used to it. So it's a very good experience. I recently traveled myself on a ship out in Greece. And I was so impressed with all the protocols we put in place before travel, particularly in the ports before people get on board the ship, and then on the ship, of course. And the great news was, whilst I, like all of our guests, was very aware of all the additional measures, everyone was still having a very relaxing holiday. And that's the trick to how do we keep people feeling really safe whilst making sure we're doing everything we need to do to maintain that. So, we're coming back to life. We've always said it's not a race. And we'll see more ships coming into service in the next few months. I think it'll really be spring next year before the full fleet is back in action, maybe a bit earlier. But certainly we're looking ahead with some really good optimism to next year. But this year we call it our healthy return to service, and we're coming back slowly. And I was so impressed that everything's being done, as were our guests, of course.
Yeah, and you were kind enough to send us a video from Moon as well, Peter. So
yes, I did.
Really
Yes, I did.
appreciate that. So how would you describe the key differences for customers? Because, I think, people are interested in what's going on board, and, what are those key differences at the moment?
So the first difference is it's interesting to travel again. I was like a young child. I kept going, where's my passport? Have I packed everything? Where do I go? But I went through Heathrow in 30 seconds in my check-in, showed them my boarding pass straight through. I think as long as you fill out all your forms, James, as you and I discussed, traveling is okay, but make sure you do follow all the instructions to fill out the forms. With regards to the cruise experience, I mean, I mentioned on the video I did for your guest that we do an incremental amount of health checks online on mysilversea.com before guests travel. And then once they arrive in the port, we set up a marquee air conditioned next to the port check-in area, where we took our guests through a lateral flow or an antigen test. It took about 15 minutes while everyone was sitting comfortably with a cold drink and a cold towel. And then once they'd cleared that, we went through our normal embarkation process. And actually on the ship, our butlers do check your temperature every morning to keep a record of that. When everyone is the crew keep their masks on throughout the cruise, wherever they are. And the guests, we all had to wear our masks when we're walking around effectively. So it's a bit the same to what we're doing at home. But once you're settled around the pool or in a bar or restaurant with friends over dinner, obviously it's very much as normal. We're not doing any self-service, but we do a very limited amount of that in any case. And I must say, people took to it very naturally. People took to it and they felt relaxed and were really enjoying the space as well. So the fact that we're not looking to fill our ships at all for the next few months gave them an even better experience. And then prior to departing for our UK guests, we have nurses on board to do all this testing for us. We carried out the lateral flow antigen test and then gave all the guests a certificate, which they needed for UK border control on the way back. So it was quite a smooth feeling. It was just great to be away and on holiday and seeing life get back to normal.
Yep. Yeah, and like you say, we discussed it earlier just before this conversation, and I've witnessed exactly the same coming on holiday myself. It's if you can just get your head round the new protocols and the extra admin that you need, which of course Panache Cruises can help and guide customers through. So it really is straightforward, and from my experience was, as was yours, there was very few people in Heathrow Airport when we were there in Terminal 5. All the shops were open, the restaurants were open, and on the plane there was a few extra seats as well, so people could spread out and enjoy the journey too. So
and of course, you're never going to read a news story saying shock horror, someone went through Heathrow Airport with no queues. Yes. So when I came back into Gatwick, I went, I was a bit worried about what I'd seen in the media. I went straight through the automatic passport barrier. That was it. No human interaction because I'd filled out my form. So I think people can travel with confidence, because sadly, it's still the case that not many people are traveling. So, the experience, again, as long as you do all the right things, it is fine.
Yeah. And you talk about confidence, Peter. Silversea must have some real confidence in the future of cruising. 2 new ships, another 3 to come, did you say, Peter? Just tell us a little bit more detail about that.
Yeah, so in the last year, we delivered Silver Origin, our beautiful new 100-guest ship in Galapagos. So that's the best of both worlds now, because you can experience the magic of Galapagos, but from a beautiful small vessel. And we're very happy with the reaction. We haven't been able to send any British guests there just yet, but certainly we've been sailing over the last 6 weeks now with our American guests, and they're loving that experience. And then Silver Moon, as I mentioned, is in operation for the first time. She's a beautiful ship. She's a sister to Silver Muse. Just under 600 guests, so still a very small ship by cruise standards. And we've got a few rooms which are laid out a bit more differently. We've created more space where we needed it. But the big thing is our sea and land taste experience, where we enable guests to go ashore and immerse themselves in the local culture. We take them to a farm or to a winery, get them to experience how things are made. We get them to eat or drink the local produce whilst ashore. And then back on the ship, we have a salt lab. I learned how to cook moussaka. It's a bit like being on a TV, a celebrity TV program. It was MasterChef actually at sea, very entertaining. And then we have a wonderful salt bar, where I had probably the best Greek, if not the only Greek gin and tonic I've ever had in my life. But that we will be creating cocktails and drinks around the world wherever the ship goes. And then the Salt Kitchen, one of our main restaurants, where you can either have our traditional fare or really try the local cuisine. So Salt was the big story for Moon. And then in November, James, we bring Silver Dawn into the fleet, a sister to Silver Moon, and she'll have the Salt features as well. But we'll be telling you in the next few weeks about the new spa experience we're having on that ship, where we're going to be doing something very different and interesting, where you don't necessarily have to, you can indulge yourself. To me, there's nothing wrong with having a cold beer or a glass of champagne in the spa. Spas can tend to be a bit stuffy around the world. Well, we're going to break that tradition and have something really quite cool, we believe. And then in 2023, we have the first of the 2 new ships we're designing. We're calling it, rather grandly, of course, the Evolution class of ship. But they'll really be the next stage, James. When you see those details, that'll be taking ultra-luxury cruising into the next phase, the next generation. And we'll be announcing that later this year. 1 in 23 and 1 in 24. So yeah, 5 ships in the growth plan, 2 with us already and 3 to come. So gives us the ability to go to the places people love even more, and then to go to even more places. That's the plan.
Fantastic. It sounds really, really exciting, Peter. But it doesn't stop there with Silversea, does it? You've got 5 new ships, 3 that have been delivered, 3 that are coming, but you've also started some enhancements to products as well. So, including shore excursions, UK transfers, Peter, tell us a little bit more about those things.
Well, we've always been quite an all-inclusive experience for our guests. So it's always been the case that once you're on board our ships, everything is included. So we don't have gratuities. We include Wi-Fi. We include all drinks, but in our case, fine wines, fine gins, fine whiskies. And we thought that we would go one step further. So from April 22 onwards, we now also include shore excursions. Now, we've always had that on our expedition ships, but now on all of our ships, we will include a shore excursion in every port, a very nice excursion in every port. And then only recently we announced something we're calling door to door, which again, talking to our guests was something they were looking for. And we will now collect our guests at home, take them to the airport in a very nice car, similar to what many of your guests, James, will have experienced with Virgin or Emirates, a similar sort of service to that. So we're now calling it door to door. So really now we cover we'll get you to the airport, we'll fly you to the resort. If necessary, we'll include the overnight hotel, and then everything on board the ship, including the shore excursions, and then we'll bring you home and deliver you back to your front door. So we think it's tremendous. Firstly, it's tremendous value for money, because quite often I have a bit of a go at some of our bigger cruise competitors where I've said in the past, the only thing you don't pay for when you get off is oxygen, because you're too busy paying for everything you consume on the ship. So firstly, it's tremendous value for money. But secondly, working with your team as well, James, it makes it a much better product to sell and a much better thing for our guests to understand, because everything's looked after from start to finish. So we believe that making it as inclusive as possible, but still working hard to make it good value for money, we think that's the magic, and we're very pleased now to have that across the fleet.
Yeah, as you say, Peter, it's the cost to get off the cruise that matters, not the cost to get on. So yeah, people can almost leave the wallets at home, I guess, with Silversea moving forward.
Yes, I mean, well, you can also, unfortunately, we don't cover gambling. I'm afraid we're not all inclusive in the casino. And we do have some very nice shops to tempt people with some jewelry and watches. We don't include that. But yes, you could actually go and have a wonderful holiday and not touch your wallet.
Right, fantastic. And it doesn't even stop there, Peter. You've got these new ships, you've got these new innovations of the shore excursions and the UK transfers, but you've also brought some product out very early, haven't you? I think you're on sale now up until spring 2024.
Yes,
what's the reason behind that?
We've been really delighted with how strong demand has been from our guests for 2022, for next year. And a lot of that, of course, is up to pent-up demand, with so many people loving coming with us and with other cruise lines. So we noticed very strong interest in 2022. And we normally wouldn't have launched our 23 program until maybe the end of this year or the spring next year. But we've decided to launch it now to give people even more choice. And so we're on sale on all of our ships right through until spring 24. And I think the other thing, James, is we often talk with Silversea about bucket list opportunities. So when you look at expeditions to the Antarctic, Arctic, Galapagos, or even if you look at some of our longer voyages, our grand voyages in Asia or the Mediterranean, I think those are holidays that people really want to get in the diary and look forward to. And what we are seeing is that people who were looking to do that really special holiday and had planned to do it in the last 1 or 2 or even next year have been holding back. So we've sort of opened things up to let them have that choice right through until spring 24. And I think, well, I think that'll go well for us and for our guests. We all love something to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to have something in the diary, isn't it? Like you say, to look forward to. But you know, the pandemic, you know, it's obviously things are improving literally on a day-by-day basis, Peter. You know, I think it's clear to see, but we're not through the other side. We're not, you know, it's still spreading around the world, and I think, you know, some of our customers are a little bit hesitant about booking a cruise. They absolutely want to go on a cruise, and they want to go on a cruise, you know, as soon as they're ready to. But I think my last question to you, Peter, is why should they book now? Why not wait for 3, 6, 9 months to make that booking for 23 or 24? Why book now?
Well, it's funny, James. I first started, believe it or not, working in travel 40 years ago. And at the time, the message was book early. And here we are 40 years later, I'm still saying book early, because if you do want that special suite at that special destination, it is still absolutely the case to get in early and make sure you get that reserved. So that will always be the case. Secondly, we do have something called Cruise with Confidence, because we really do understand that guests want flexibility. So at the moment, if you book any of our cruises, we have an incredibly flexible conditions whereby they can cancel at any time, right up until 30 days before departure. So even people who are a bit concerned maybe for next summer can still book with confidence now, and they can change it. And in fact, if you book a 23 or a 24 cruise now, we have very small admin charges for changing or cancelling your booking that far out. We, like many others, we don't keep the deposit. We refund most of that deposit and just keep a small administration fee. So there isn't a financial penalty really in booking now, and it's something to get in the diary and look forward to. And you're absolutely right. The world will recover at different speeds. But we are seeing very, very strong interest next summer for the Mediterranean, because it's close to home. And the view is that the Mediterranean and Europe will recover quite well for next year. However, it's likely that Asia, it'll be winter 22, 23, and Australia, of course, is a bit of a no-go for this winter, but will come back in 22, 23. So again, people who really want to do that trip to Asia should be looking a bit further out. But people looking to cruise closer to home can be more confident in 2022. And things will change, things will evolve. But for us, we're looking at the long term. It's not a race. And we just want to make sure that both you and your team and your guests have that flexibility to reserve something now and have flexibility to change it if needs be.
Fantastic. Thanks, Peter. Well, look, really appreciate you spending some time with me this morning, Peter, out of your busy schedule. You've clearly got loads going on at Silversea. It's all hugely exciting. And I just wanted to finish by saying thanks very much for your support of Panache Cruises. You know, it's a pleasure to be working with you and the team, and looking forward to working with you over the years to come. So thanks, Peter. Really appreciate it.
Likewise, James, and I'd say to your guests, they're in great shape by working with both you and your knowledge and your team. You know, I've always said that why would you want to book with a travel agent? The answer is recommendation and reassurance. And in these challenging times, that's absolutely the right thing to do. So with your expertise, James, I guess your guests are in great shape, and I guess Silversea and Panache, it's the best way to go. But let's hope everyone who's watching is staying safe and looking forward to traveling again. And we'd love to see you on Silversea at some time in the future.
Peter, thanks very much, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, James.